Right. So thanks again to everybody for joining for Greener Gimmick, spotting false sustainability marketing. So this morning with me, oh, I need to introduce myself first. My name is Emily Potosny. I'm jumping ahead of myself. If you could first scan or just join this Slido, we're going to have a couple of different activities for you to participate in during the presentation. You can join either with that number at slido.com or by scanning this little QR code here, and that should bring you to a page that will not show anything yet, but don't worry, when we go to the slides that have something for you to do, you can refer back to what's on your phone, and it should be active. All right. So everybody's had a chance to join. Go to the next page. Now I can introduce us. So I'm Emily Potosny. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Sustainability Engagement Manager in the Office of Sustainability. I'm joined by Jennifer Barnes. You could introduce yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Barnes. I'm the Supplier Diversity and Sustainability Manager in the Strategic Sourcing Office. I also use she, her pronouns.
Awesome. And hi, everyone. I'm Sam Chan. I'm the Assistant Director of Sustainability in the Office of Sustainability, and I also use she, her pronouns. Awesome. So today we are going to be diving into sustainable purchasing. So to do that, first we have to define what sustainability means. So the University of Pittsburgh defines sustainability as balancing equity, environment, and economics so current and future generations can thrive. So you might be asking yourself right now, how does purchasing practice really help advance sustainability? So when you look at a greenhouse gas inventory, purchased goods are accounted for in your upstream activities and fall under scope 3 emissions. So you can really help Pitt reach its carbon neutrality goal by 2037 by making more local sustainable purchases. And also, if you think about it, your dollar really has power. It's a vote, right? So when you use it to purchase a more sustainable product, it signals the market that they really need to make a change to get your business. So as more and more of us purchase sustainable products, businesses will need to change their practices to really stay relevant and competitive. And businesses and consumers know that making something more sustainable costs a little bit more money to do. So consumers typically know that they need to pay a little bit of a higher price for a sustainable product. However, some companies, instead of actually doing the work, decide to try to trick consumers into paying more by implying that their products are sustainable by using greenwashing tactics. So what do I mean when I say greenwashing? Greenwashing is a deceptive practice where a company makes false or misleading claims about the environmental impact of its product, services, or operations. And we're going to teach you how to look out for that today.
All right, so now we're gonna do our first Slido activity. We want to hear from you about what kind of green labels or terminology that you might have encountered on products when you've been going through the store. So if you look back at your Slido, you should now see the opportunity to enter some words into a word cloud. So you can go right ahead and just enter any words, single words, any like phrases or anything that you might have encountered in the store for something that was trying to label itself as green or sustainable. Let's see, and feel free to enter as many as you like. Hmm. Yeah, you just hit add response and then you can add more. It's got natural, eco-friendly. Anything else that folks have encountered? Got all natural, recyclable. Yep. What about things related to like being locally produced or like that green, just literally green, putting the colors in green on the packaging, on the labeling. Yep. Yeah, so I will leave this open so that you can continue to add different words that you're thinking of so we can refer back to this word cloud. You should be able to see it once I close it at the end. But yeah, you can see there's a lot of different things that you might see claims made on labels and packaging in the store. However, there aren't that many things on your packaging, or maybe as many as you'd expect, that are actually regulated. So the claims that are on labels for products that are sold in the US, there are some things that are regulated by the Federal Trade Commission through a variety of different acts, but yeah, they're more limited than you might think. So here's a couple of examples of things that are regulated in terms of what companies can put on their products, claims that they can make, and what like verbiage they have to add to their labels. So one of those is the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act. So this might be for when you're looking at a piece of equipment or anything that's being sold, the commodity ID, where the product was manufactured and packed, and then what the net contents are, what it's primarily made out of. So this is stuff that you'll probably see on most products that are in stores. And that is something that's required through this Fair Packaging and Labeling Act through the FTC. The other things that you might see that are required, hazard labels. So things related to the flammability or choking hazard of the product, any toxic substances that might be in that product. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, whether something gets labeled or as toxic or not has a lot to do with what research and what experience has been already out there with the public with that material. Other things that you might see that actually are regulated, textile care. So when you look at a piece of clothing, you see all of those big laundry list of symbols, literally a laundry list of symbols that tells you what you can do with that textile, how you should wash it, how you should handle it. So those are things that are regulated. Energy is also something that more recently has new labeling requirements. So when you're going and shopping for light bulbs or for a washing machine or something like that, you're going to see the amount of energy that that equipment draws and then kind of an estimated cost for those energy requirements. So that's something that's required now. And then Food and Drug Administration labeling as well. So there are regulations around labeling something as organic or not, the origin of that product, things like that. Now, as far as green terminology and making claims of sustainability or the greenness of a product, most of these terms that we were talking about on the previous word cloud, you'll see on this list of things that are not regulated in really any way. So most green terminology is really not regulated in the United States. And that's why we rely on so many third-party certifications and being able to recognize a vetted third-party cert, and that being a really valuable skill to avoid greenwashing. So yeah, some of the examples of what you might presume is regulated: eco-friendly, environmentally preferred, natural, biodegradable, compostable, even renewable and recyclable. They're all terms that you could put on a product, and there's nothing in the US right now that is making it illegal for a company to do that, to make that claim. So one of the ones I wanted to dive in a little bit more was recyclable. That might have come as a surprise to folks. It often is whenever I talk about recycling on campus, that both the term recyclable and this symbol, the chasing arrows symbol, are both symbols that actually do not mean that that product can be recycled in single stream recycling in the US. So this chasing arrow symbol was actually created as a design competition from, I think it was the Container Corporation of America or the Packaging Corporation. It was designed by a USC student, an undergrad, who based it on the Mobius loop. And he won the design contest. And then a lot of folks who manufacture packaging and bottling and beverage containers took up the opportunity of what this came to be recognized as a symbol of recycling and put it on their products with their resin indicators. So when you see these numbers inside of the chasing arrow symbol on the bottom of a bottle or anything that's made out of a plastic polymer, these numbers are actually referring to the kind of polymer, the kind of resin that material is. And it's really just useful for manufacturers to be able to identify what that product is made out of. You as a consumer don't really need to know anything about these numbers, and the symbol around it just means that it's plastic. It doesn't actually mean anything about it being recyclable or not. So that is a surprise to many people as we see it on so many products, and we might presume that it is recyclable, but actually the majority of these plastic resins are not recyclable in the US. Single stream recycling, we'll talk about a little bit more down the line. But ultimately, the symbol can be ignored, and you really need to just be looking at the shape of the plastic material to determine whether you can put it in the recycling, both at Pitt and really anywhere around this region. So, just as a reminder of what you can put in the recycling in single stream. So any paper, cardboard, aluminum, tin, and steel containers, aluminum foil that is clean and 3 inches or larger, kind of like the size of your fist if it was balled up. Glass can be recycled as well. And then plastic bottles, jugs, jars, and containers. So it really has less to do with the resin indicator on the bottom. If it's a bottle, jug, jar, or container, it's likely a 1 or a 2. And those are the kinds of resins that are readily recyclable in the US. But regardless of whether it's a 1 or a 2, if it's not one of these shapes, you shouldn't put it in the recycling, in our single stream recycling on campus or really at your home around southwestern Pennsylvania as well. So with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, they actually do have some guidelines for green labeling and manufacturing called the Green Guide. They've actually been under review for the last couple of years. There was a public comment period that was open for about a year, and they're, working on those to make some new recommendations to the Green Guides. I think they were last actually released in 2012 for like the first formal Green Guides. But within those guidelines, again, guidelines, not regulations, they did make a claim that marketers should qualify recyclable claims when recycling facilities are not available to at least 60% of consumers or communities where a product is sold. So that means that the FTC is trying to encourage manufacturers through these guidelines to only put this recycling symbol on their packaging when that package is going to be sold in a community where the single stream facilities can actually process the material. So in response to that guidance, there's actually some policy efforts to update that. There are also industry efforts, like the ones you see on the screen here, to have more transparent, honest, and understandable labeling about recycling. So this is from Keep America Beautiful, which is a kind of collaboration of beverage and bottling manufacturers in the US that have created this How to Recycle initiative. And this is intended to try and remove some of that confusion about whether or not the materials in your package are actually able to be recycled in your area by indicating whether something is sometimes recyclable, dependent on facilities, widely recyclable, that means in single stream recycling, like what we have on campus. Something that's not yet recyclable, meaning there really isn't a market for that material or a process to capture and reprocess the material into new. Or whether you can recycle it with a store drop off. And sometimes you'll see that for things like plastic films. You might have noticed you can drop those off at Giant Eagles or Target around this area. So this is one effort that's underway to try and eliminate some of the confusion around what these symbols that are commonly used really mean. Some of the policy efforts that are underway are largely taking place in the EU. So the European Union is trying to tackle greenwashing through different bills and laws. The EU Unfair Commercial Practices Directive is one of those, and the UK Green Claims Code is another one. We don't have anything underway in the US that really matches this kind of effort, but globally, it's something that folks are interested in addressing through policy means. And now I'll hand it over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Emily. So some of the work or the efforts from the FTC over the last few years have shed additional light on companies or manufacturers producing or making claims of certain materials that they have found to be false. In 2022, in separate but really similar lawsuits against both Kohl's and Walmart, the FTC alleged that both national retailers were falsely marketing dozens of rayon textile products as bamboo. Additionally, the consumer protection watchdog alleged that Kohl's and Walmart were making deceptive environmental claims. They allegedly falsely touted that bamboo textiles were made using eco-friendly processes, and in their advertisements, both retailers claimed quote-unquote bamboo-derived products are produced free of harmful chemicals using clean, non-toxic materials. But in reality, The process of producing bamboo-derived products requires the use of toxic chemicals, which results in the emission of hazardous pollutants, is what the FTC found. Go to the next slide. So similarly, last year, Keurig was ordered to pay a fine of $1.5 million in penalties. Similar to what Emily mentioned about local recycling, what they found is that the company Keurig was making misleading statements about how recyclable the popular K-cup single-use coffee pods are. The website says that it's recyclable, but not all local facilities are able to take the type of plastic and the materials that are used in K-cup recycling. So even though Keurig still believes and to this day, they still have recyclable listed as an attribute on their website with a small asterisk because they still believe that their product is recyclable, which technically it is. The SEC actually found that that they cannot be effectively recycled because the country's largest recycling companies, which operate in more than 1/3 of all recycling facilities in the country, that they have really negative feedback and their recyclability is questionable. They don't accept the pods. So Nespresso, a smaller version of the pods, is a similar design. And Nespresso hasn't totally been transparent when it comes to the topic of recycling. And even though the company assured the public that their single-use coffee pods are ecologically friendly, and made exclusively of recyclable materials, the reality is a little bit different. There is some truth, like we said, that the pods can theoretically be recycled, but you need specialized machinery in order to properly distribute or take apart the pods and recycle them properly. So they both have this similar issue, and they're technically or theoretically recyclable, but practically they are not. The third option, or excuse me, the third example would be for a brand, a company like H&M. Similar to the words that were listed in the cloud before, companies use a lot of information to describe products to appeal to consumers because they're attractive and they're triggering and attracting new customers through marketing. H&M was recently fined as well, $1.2 million for making unsubstantiated claims on their quote unquote H&M Conscious line. They are using a scorecard system to inform consumers about the environmental soundness of each product, but a recent report claims that more than half of the scorecards portrayed products as being better for the environment than they actually were. So the report also found some instances in which H&M scorecard allegedly gave information about the sustainability of a product that was completely opposite and just incorrect. So H&M did win a class action lawsuit where they were looking at the claims on the face, but it's likely that the FTC will take more action against the retailer based on their claims.
So how, whenever you're making a purchase, do you decide what really is more sustainable? You want to be looking at what's called the life cycle. And there's a tool to do this. It's called a life cycle assessment. And it's the calculation of resources that go into making the product and what happens to that product when it's no longer useful. We call this a cradle to grave assessment. And it really looks at everything from the natural resources being used, manufacturing, distribution, the consumer using the product, and it being disposed. So let's really quickly walk through the image that's on the screen, which is a representation of an LCA for a single-use plastic water bottle, right? So at the very beginning, before it even is formed, you have the natural resource in the extraction. Then you have the design of the product and the making of that product, which is the bottle, and then the packaging and the distribution and shipping it to the consumer. Then you have the consumer using it and whatever maintenance might go in there. And then if you don't recycle it, you go through the disposal process and going either to landfill or being incinerated. In the green, you have if somebody recycles that bottle. And you can see here that if you actually go through the recycling process, you actually can skip the raw extraction. So it starts over again if you use the recycled content. So this is what a life cycle assessment looks like. And companies can conduct and provide life cycle assessments on their products to increase their transparency and even get certifications based on this assessment. So LCAs are a holistic approach of looking at a product instead of zooming in on just one aspect. So one popular way that industries can greenwash is by saying that their product is more sustainable than their competitors without really backing it up with data and only focusing on one thing. So when we think about a single-use plastic bag versus a reusable one, people will say, hey, be sustainable and choose our reusable bag that didn't use plastic, right? But is this really the more sustainable choice? So let's look a little bit deeper at this claim from a life cycle assessment perspective. When compared to a single-use plastic bag, this is how many times these bags need to be used to be considered more sustainable. It's looking at the consumer's behavior, right? And it's taking that into account. You might be surprised by these stats, but when you think about the life cycle assessment, it really does make sense. Plastic bags are made from a leftover byproduct from making gasoline and are very lightweight to ship. When compared to, say, a craft paper bag made from virgin materials, meaning that trees need to be cut down to make it, they also weigh significantly more to ship, meaning that you need to use this bag 43 times to be more sustainable than a single-use plastic bag. The cotton bag considers the amount of water and resources it takes to grow the cotton and then process that cotton into the bag. You need to use that bag over 7,000 times before you can consider it more sustainable. So when a company makes a claim that their product is more sustainable by zooming into one aspect of that product without providing LCAs or figures, that can be a warning sign to you that they might be greenwashing. So whenever you're looking at a company, you really want to look for their transparency. So a website I really like to give as an example is the Interface website. It's a really great example of transparency. When you go to their website, their sustainability information, their goals are easy to find. They are quantified by clear numbers, and they are really examined from multiple angles. Like, so for example, 79% of their manufacturing is powered by renewable energy, and 51% of the materials in their floor products are recycled or bio-based. So companies that are doing the work will make it very easy for you to find that information, and they will be transparent. You can also clearly see logically how this product would be more sustainable at the end of its life cycle. So a traditional rug covers the whole space of a floor, right? And let's say you spill something on that and it's stained, your options are to live with that stain or get a brand new rug. Interphase has actually small interlocking squares of carpet that go together. So if a little area is stained, all you have to do is unlock it and send them back that little stained square. So instead of getting rid of an entire rug, you're only getting rid of, let's say, 1 square foot of material instead of that whole rug. So, again, if you think about it from a life cycle approach, you can really see how this might be a more sustainable product than a traditional rug. So another famous example I like to point out of the comparison tactic is used by Starbucks. So in 2018, Starbucks released a strawless lid as part of its sustainability drive. However, this lid contains more plastic than the old lid and straw combined. So the company really didn't dispute this, but claimed that it was made from polypropylene, a commonly acceptable recyclable plastic that can be captured in the recycling infrastructure. However, critics were quick to point out that only 9% of the world's plastic is recycled, so the company really shouldn't assume that all these lids would be recycled. So again, looking at it from a life cycle assessment, what happens to this lid after it's used?
All right. And continuing with this kind of idea of putting irrelevant claims or claims that are just not backed up. So one of the things you might have seen on some products when you're shopping around the store, especially if you're looking at buying things like a refrigerator or hair products or something like that, is about CFCs. So those are chlorofluorocarbons. So in 1988, the Montreal Protocol called for drastic reductions of these chlorofluorocarbons. They're a refrigerant and they were depleting the ozone layer. So this protocol was adopted really quickly in the EU, and it was strengthened in the 90s to phase out all CFCs entirely by the 2010s. So as a result, we've seen the ozone concentration really rebound as opposed to original projections of ozone remaining by 2060. That's what you can see in the image on the right there. So because of that protocol and the way that manufacturers have actually been ordered to reduce the use of these materials and eliminate them from their products, any products that are advertising or marketing their product as ozone friendly or non-CFC are really touting irrelevant and redundant claims because they've already been regulated to remove those. So anything you would buy would be CFC free, as opposed to something that this is an additional claim. Another example of this is about BPA or bisphenol A. This is an industrial polymer, a chemical used to make polycarbonate. It's a hard, clear plastic. These are frequently used as a protective layer or in other resins in many food and beverage containers as a lining between the food product and materials like metals. So there's public concern over the potential leaching of this chemical of BPA. And that prompted the FDA to assess some regulations, and they enacted a BPA-free regulation for specifically baby bottles, sippy cups, and infant formula packaging. So not all consumer products, but specifically consumer products for young children and infants. However, other products that are labeled BPA-free, like Nalgene's, who removed the material or the chemical from their products in 2008, they are not required, and thus those claims are relevant for these certain products and not relevant for things like baby products where it's already been ordered to be removed. And so another example of a irrelevant claim is something that you often see in products that are claiming something is all natural. So technically, anything that's made from plants, from things in the natural world, you could call natural. And that includes sugars, corn syrups, all these kinds of things. So this is a marketing campaign from Coca-Cola claiming they have sweetness from natural sources. Well, sure you do. Corn syrup is natural, derived from natural sources. So these are also things that can be an irrelevant claim that companies might make. Jennifer.
Thanks, Emily. So you've seen like a really great list and examples of things that are untrustworthy and things that include misleading labels. So our suggestion, most of you are familiar with the trustworthy certifications, but companies will continue to try to use the misleading labels. So what should you do? Our suggestion is to use several different resources and potentially databases that are accessible to you in order to choose products that are sustainable, socially responsible, and prioritize the things that you care about, like post-recycled content, diverse suppliers, locally owned, things like that. So there is this Eco Label Index that has a good list and a supply of trustworthy certifications that are like those listed on the right, like Fair Trade, Green Seal, Cruelty-Free, USDA Certified Organic, and others is a great resource. But if you're looking for things that are maybe not as popular in the grocery store, we have some other examples of resources that you can utilize. One of those is the BPI, Biodegradable Products Institute. It's a free and searchable database that you can use for compostable products. So if you're concerned about whether your item is actually compostable or locally commercially compostable, this BPI website or bpiworld.org is a good option to use in order to search from packaging and other products to find out if they are compostable. And if they are, if you need to bring them to campus and utilize Pitt's compostable sites for drop-off, if you don't have that available to you at home, you can do that. We do have commercially compost available on campus in certain locations, a map of which can be found on the Pitt Sustainability website. The one that I use the most in the work that I do at Pitt is EPEAT. So EPEAT is a Type 1 eco label managed by the Global Electronics Council. So I use this, and you can use this when you're searching for electronic products such as laptops, CPUs, servers, and other networking equipment, including cell phones. And Pitt uses this for our electronic purchasing rating. So we do this for ASHE reporting every 3 years. And every year we ask our major contracted suppliers like Dell, Apple, and others to give us reporting on the EP products that we utilize on campus. So they will give us a list of all the different types of laptops we purchased, and then either they will provide us the EP rankings for each of those computers or each of those laptops, tablets, whatever, etc. Or I can use this EP database in order to search for monitors, displays, and everything. And that will give us a good rating on what we are actually purchasing. Is there a better product? I think they're platinum, gold, and silver. So most Apple phones are EP platinum, but the different tablets and laptops that we purchase range. So if you're looking to be the most sustainable when you're purchasing even personally, this is a good way to see if one model is more sustainable than a different model. Thirdly, the Energy Star product, which has been around for quite a while, it's really for more um, large appliances and large and small appliances that you would have in your home. So the Energy Star product finder, you can search by category on energystar.gov. You can search by category if you're looking for a new refrigerator, a washing machine, TV, even different light bulbs that you'll be using in your home or home office. And this is a really well-established, very well-respected resource and government-supported website to utilize in order to look at those materials. Often I'm sure you have noticed when you're looking for appliances in the stores, they'll have an Energy Star sticker with more details of exactly how much energy is saved. But if you don't go to the actual store and look, you can use this online resource in order to search the Energy Star appliances.
Awesome. So, show of hands, who thinks this is a lot of things to remember? Okay. So a few folks, right? So if you don't have time to really do this deep dive into every product you're purchasing, I want to show you a really quick and easy choice pyramid that you can use. So your purchasing habits really can make a difference in reducing waste if you prioritize the options that fall into the best category and limit those that are in the worst. So best practice is source reduction, which simply means looking at ways to reduce. This means instead of handing out swag to every person, try a raffle, or better yet, giving away experience, eliminating purchase single-use items, reducing packaging by doing bulk purchases, and prioritizing products that are made from post-consumer recycled content, and use shared resources or multiple function devices. So one of my favorite examples of this is ketchup. If you are throwing an office party, instead of having the single-use packets of ketchup, go ahead and buy a bottle. That will be a more sustainable option there. And some opportunities that we have for source reduction on campus that I want to bring to your attention is our annual Clean and Swap events. So this happens May 21st and 22nd. And this is a really great event. People will bring items from across campus and be able to just, put them out and people can come and grab what they need. This also is for medical supplies as well. So if you have any medical supplies at home that you are looking for a sustainable reuse option for, this is a great event to participate in. So the second best purchasing practice is to try to reduce waste is to look for items that can be reused or repaired. So you can look for companies that have take-back programs or refurbished items like Pit Surplus. And when printing or customizing something, don't include dates or locations so that item can be reused in the future.
All right, so moving on down the choice pyramid here, after thinking about ways that you can reduce the actual number of new purchases that you're making, how you can reuse and repair the items that you do have, then you want to think about whether there actually is a way for the product that you're buying to be recycled or composted here on campus or at your home, if that's an option for you. So we looked at some of the resources for how to determine if something is compostable here on campus. That's BPI, the Biodegradable Products Institute. And then one of the ways that you can make sure that it's something you can do is by familiarizing yourself with the recycling and composting rules on campus and making sure that you've got signage posted on your containers in your office space, in your classroom, or even at your home, if that's something you'd like to do. So just as a review, for compost here on campus, we work with a commercial composter called AgriCycle. They accept all kinds of food, meat, bones, dairy, eggshells, all of that different kind of stuff you can put into compost that's here on campus. You can also put unlined paper products, so paper towels. You might have noticed around campus that we actually have compost bins in the bathrooms. That's because our paper towels that are in the bathrooms are compostable. Also standard paper plates that you might get from a pizza shop, so long as it's unlined, those can all go in. The third thing that can go in, which might be a surprise, is bioplastic made materials. So this is things that are made from polylactic acid, PLA. So if you're ordering from Pitt Catering Co., or if you're picking up your food from the campus eatery or the Perch, all of the servingware that things are served on in those spaces, if you don't use the reusable plates, which again should be option number one, but all those items are actually compostable. They are BPI certified and they can compost in those commercial settings like AgriCycle that we send our compost to from campus. This sign, along with lots of other orientations of this sign, are available on our website for you to print, put up on the containers in your spaces, or just review. And for recycling, we've already looked at this, but just as a reminder, we can do paper, cardboard, metals, glass, and plastic bottles, jugs, and jars specifically in our campus single stream recycling. Now, I wanted to bring this home with thinking about recycling from a life cycle assessment perspective. So Sam mentioned earlier, looking at an LCA can include a model such as recycling, where that material is captured, processed, and remanufactured into a new material. Now that is recycling, right? Actually taking that material, turning it into the same thing again, or something that can still be recycled after that. And we see that as something that does exist in single stream recycling for aluminum cans. They can be reprocessed and got back on the shelves within 90 days typically. So there's a really well-established market for aluminum can processing. Glass bottles and jars, same thing. You can melt down that material and turn it back into glass bottles and jars. And for some plastic or plastic bottles, jars, and jugs, those can also be turned into new bottles. Now, there is another thing that happens with a lot of materials in the recycling market, and that is called downcycling. So downcycling is when you take that product, turn it into the raw materials, and then those raw materials are used to create a different kind of product that can't be recycled again. That's going to be the end of the life cycle for that product. So we see that with glass, some of the glass cullet that comes from our single stream recycling infrastructure is bought by folks who are going to put it into fiberglass to insulate buildings. And that's a frequent one that we'll see with that particular commodity. However, for plastics, a lot of the recycling market is actually downcycling those materials into a product that's going to be the end of that life cycle. So I say this just as another way when you're purchasing your products to consider that life cycle assessment. And if you can, go for the glass bottle, go for the aluminum can. It's much more likely to be recycled than downcycled like plastic materials are. All right, so moving on from that, going down the choice pyramid again, The next thing to look at is for companies that have waste to energy programs that can divert items from the standard landfill. So waste to energy, a lot of different municipalities will have contracts with waste management companies that will actually use waste to energy facilities rather than a landfill. So actually most of the waste collection that's around the Philadelphia area, most of it's going to waste to energy. And what this means is that the materials that are captured in standard trash collection are going to go to a facility, be burned, and then that heat combustion is going to be captured, used to turn a turbine, turn it into energy. So that's just a slightly higher ranking than ultimately landfilling. So finally, you do want to limit the products that are going to end up in a landfill, whether that's after a single use or at the long-term end of the life cycle. All right, so we've got 15 minutes left, and now we're gonna hand it back over to Sam.
Awesome. So now we're going to see how well you all can avoid the pitfalls of greenwashing with a little pop quiz. So we're going to launch a survey. And which of these, let's say you're in the supermarket and you're trying to buy some food, which one would you buy to be more sustainable? What label?
Give it a couple minutes here. All right. 7, last person, get you in there. All right, I'm gonna end the poll.
Great. So, Emily, which one was?
Can folks not see that? Okay. So the correct answer was USDA organic, and 100% of folks that answered chose the right one. Yay!
Hey, great. Awesome. All right. So, which purchase is more sustainable? Something that's 100% recyclable or something that contains recycled material? Let's see what you all think.
I don't know. Is this showing? Nope, that's not the right one. Sorry. There we go. Sorry. Okay. See if we can get one more person. Gonna end the poll and share it. All right, so we were actually split 50-50 on this one. So the correct answer in this case would actually be contains 100% recycled content. So even though it's not something that is formally regulated, the contents of a material that like make up the commodity, that is something that's a little bit more closely regulated. So companies tend not to get away with saying that a certain percentage of the product that they're selling is made from recycled content. So that's kind of where that H&M and the Kohl's concern over bamboo derived products. If it's not actually bamboo derived, you can get in trouble for that. So you can trust those claims a little bit more than your standard claims that would just be like very generic. And a bottle being 100% recyclable, well, yeah, it is and so it's kind of a redundant claim when you state it that way. So
Yeah.
a little bit of a tricky one.
And when you think about the life cycle assessment of a product too, you know, if you're doing something that contains recycled material, you're taking out that extraction of natural resources. So it's almost always going to be the most sustainable thing to do is having a product that contains recycled material. Awesome. All right. So next question. Where would you go to get the most comprehensive review of everything that goes into making a laptop to make sure that the laptop you purchase is the most sustainable?
Okay, that's yours. 5 folks responded. Anybody else want to answer? Okay, we'll end it. All right, so 100% of folks said ePeat, and you're correct. That's the place to go specifically for if you're looking to purchase electronics like a laptop. So great work. All right.
So next question, let's say you're craving some chocolate and you want a lot of chocolate. You don't just want a little bit of chocolate. Which of these options is more sustainable? Purchasing 2 separate bags or doing a bulk purchase?
All right, you got 5 out of 5. So we had 100% saying the bulk container. Nice work. So it's a more sustainable option because it doesn't come in as much packaging overall, all those individual pieces. And then actually the jar with a neck is a recyclable package in our single stream recycling here on campus. So great. Right.
Awesome. And now let's say you're at the grocery store and you're trying to buy some shampoo. Which of these labels is greenwashing on that product?
Did that launch for folks? Yeah, let's try it again. There we go.
All right.
Got all our responses in. Folks said 100% natural, you're correct. So both cruelty-free and Rainforest Alliance are verified third-party certifications that you can trust. Whereas 100% natural, there's no regulation for that kind of language being used on packaging. All right.
Awesome. So next, you are a researcher and you're buying an ultra low temp freezer for your lab. Where would you go to find the info about your model to make sure it's the most sustainable purchase? So this is a big freezer.
And I'm not actually, I don't think I have a poll for that one. Apologies for that. So if you want to just type it in the chat, that can work too. Why is that one not showing up?
We can just do really quick. Give the thumbs up emoji if you think it's ePeat. Give the thumbs up emoji if you think it's Energy Star. All right, give up the thumbs up if you think it's the Consumer Reports. Okay, awesome. So yeah, it's Energy Star because that is where you're going to find how much energy every appliance uses. So you want to look at Energy Star whenever you're buying an appliance.
Mhm.
All right, so next, you're trying to make sure that you can compost on campus. So which product do you know 100% is compostable and can be composted on campus?
Same thing. I don't know why those ones aren't showing up. They're in my survey on Zoom, but of course
Okay,
there are
so
some technical difficulties.
same thing. We're going to do thumbs up. So let's say it's this fork that you are looking at all these things on the package. Thumbs up if you think that that one's the correct answer. And then what about thumbs up if you think the mailback bag that says it's 100% compostable? Or thumbs down if you think that that one's the wrong one. All right. So you all got this correct. Yes, you can see on that fork that it has that BPI logo down at the bottom. So that makes it the correct choice.
Mhm. All right. We're going to hand it back over to Jennifer.
Great. So I'll just take a few minutes to prioritize, or excuse me, to highlight some of what we are actually doing on campus in purchasing and how we are helping to guide more sustainable purchasing. So one of the goals of the Pitt Sustainability Plan is to integrate the tenets of sustainability into universities' procurement policies and guidelines. And the next slide. And the way that you can find out all the information on the most sustainable products, programs, what our suppliers are doing, and what Pitt hasn't instilled in our contracts is to go to the Purchase Pay and Travel website. So that's ppt.pitt.edu. On that website, you can click under the drop down for suppliers and find out more detail about our sustainability initiatives. And again, you can look by category and find out the guidelines that are there for purchasing, if that makes sense for your area and what you're buying. You can skip forward a little bit. So I do want to highlight the Sustainable Supplier Show, which generally happens once a year. I think the last one we did was prioritizing and focusing on the Green Office and Green Lab
Mhm.
certification through the Office of Sustainability or designation through the Office of Sustainability. And we were able to bring suppliers on campus who sell a lot to both our offices and labs and promote and share some of the more sustainable products that they have available. And the one item that I really want to prioritize is like purchasing on contract. Not only does it really help us to track what we buy, helps in my reporting and things like that, like I mentioned earlier, but it also really helps for us to know what our purchasers on campus want from our agreements. So we want to consider sustainability when we're evaluating providers. We also want to know what people are actually going to buy, what kind of resources they want, what they need when like a new punch out comes up. So you can go to the next page, Emily. So the sustainability and purchasing examples that we have are directly a result of from what our end users and our purchasers on campus have asked for from our both scientific and office supplies. So our office supplier is Supra, ODP, and on their website, on their punch out that's listed here, they created a green guide just for us to highlight the most sustainable products that Office Depot has an easy guide that you can look and click through when you're doing your searches. An example of how to use that when you're doing your own searching is by looking at the details of each product. They have added eco labels and labeling to the descriptions, but also there's like a little label there that says eco on it. So you can click on there and look on the description and try to understand a little bit more detail about what the eco label standard is that ODP and Supra are using. So for example, the envelope to the left is SFI certified fiber sourcing, whereas the one on the right is Forest Stewardship Council, which are both really great standards and eco labels for paper products. But this is just an example of how to do a search and find that information on our Super Punch Out. Similarly, Fisher has a lot of sustainability components and attributes that we've asked them to prioritize. Also on their Fisher Punch Out, you can do a search using sustainability attributes and features and do a deep dive in each product item. And if you're looking for something in particular, it's an easy way for you to do some more research and really maybe not get as much detail as a life cycle assessment, but there might be some additional information there that will be able to influence a decision that you might make.
Do you want me to
Is this?
mention about this?
Yeah, go for it.
So, with Fisher and the Green Lab, is it Green Lab Advisory Council? Or committee? They work together to put together a sample box of 20 different greener choice products in the Fisher Punch Out. You can order these for 1 cent, the full sample box of 20 products through the Dietrich stockroom. And then you can try out those products, see if you like them, if there's something that you would like to incorporate into your standard purchases for your lab. And we're doing this just as a way to recognize that sometimes when you're in a lab, there's products you found that you're really used to working with and you're just not sure about trying something new. So this is a way that you can kind of get a taste of trying those different products out through this sample box. So I encourage you to check that out.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, so to close this out, I want to talk a little bit about the Climate Action Plan and how sustainable travel could potentially be another way to look at the most sustainable options. So the next slide is like really the overarching idea of sustainable travel and the air travel reduction that we are trying to make in order to hit Pitt's plan for carbon neutrality. In the next slide, this is what the new user interface for Concur looks like. So again, I encourage you to purchase on contract, and I also encourage you to use our systems that we have in place when you're purchasing your air travel, hotels, and train travel as well, because these systems will track and give us reporting back, and they also will give us more competitive edge in our pricing conversations. One of the new, the updated features in this user interface
And a little bit of milk.
is the idea of searching for the actual specific numbers of pounds of CO2 depending on the flight. So this example is a flight for a conference that I have coming up to New Orleans, and I wanted to look and see exactly what would be the better option for me. These two flights that are listed here, the Southwest flight is cheaper and has 468 kg of CO2. The United Airlines flight is a little bit more expensive, but it also has fewer pounds of CO2. So it's a judgment that you have to kind of make when you're purchasing your travel, if you're looking at direct flights versus connections. Maybe a train is a better option. You can also search for train travel on here to reduce your emissions. The trains are great. I always encourage those. Taking a train to New Orleans is unlikely, so a flight is probably going to be in my future, but this is a good way for us to be able to judge. I know we're in a tough financial position right now, so everybody's looking at the cheaper and less expensive option, but in the future, even your personal travel, just kind of use tools like this to evaluate the flight, the train, and the trip that you're actually going to take to make your best decision.
All right. So just wrapping things up, I know we're at time, but in conclusion, we want you to just take this information and recognize that every purchase really is an opportunity to align your values and the goals that we have at Pitt related to sustainability and purchasing, our carbon neutrality commitments with our actions through those purchases. And you can contribute to a more sustainable future that way. I have not left much time for questions, but Jennifer, Sam, are you able to stay on for a couple minutes to answer questions? We can just open it up to folks and I will stop the recording if I can. Let's see.